Major support for Out to Lunch is provided by the law firm of Jones Walker, established in 1937 with over 375 attorneys in offices throughout the U.S., providing a comprehensive range of services to a local, national, and international client base. JonesWalker.com. And by Short & Associates, legal recruiters in Louisiana and Texas, and Orange Theory Fitness.
From Commander's Palace Restaurant in the Garden District in New Orleans, we're out to lunch with Peter Ricchiuti. Peter Ricchiuti is Tulane University's A.B. Freeman School of Business professor and director of the award-winning Birkenroad Reports. It's business, New Orleans style.
Hi, I'm Peter Ricchiuti. Welcome to Out to Lunch. New Orleans is a city of neighborhoods, although it is often a question of local opinion exactly where geographical areas like the Irish Channel, Gerttown, or Pigeontown begin and end. There can be fierce pride associated with coming from a particular neighborhood. Interestingly, because it's contrary to the folk wisdom about the benefits of belonging to a small community, New Orleans also lives with some of the worst crime statistics in the country. My guests on Out to Lunch today have businesses that involve both of these issues, building community and understanding crime. Mike Bertel is the owner of a company called Inhab. Inhab is a construction company with 3 divisions: design and construction, millwork, and real estate sales. These 3 wings are working together in the company's biggest and most visible project to date, a development called Patterson Point. Patterson Point is a complete neighborhood that Inhab is designing and building from scratch. It's called Patterson Point because it's on Patterson Road in Algiers. Mike, welcome to Out to Lunch.
Thank you.
Mike Cormaci is the co-owner and president of a company called WatchSystems. WatchSystems doesn't have anything to do with the type of watch that goes on your wrist. The word watch refers to the sense of keeping an eye on things. Exactly who they're keeping an eye on is sex offenders. WatchSystems is a software company whose flagship product is called Offender Watch. It's sexual offender management and community notification software that is run out of the company's office in Covington and used by 3,500 law enforcement and other agencies nationwide. In other words, as we sit here today, Offender Watch is keeping track of 60% of sexual offenders in the United States. Mike, welcome to Out to Lunch.
Thank you for having me.
We have 2 mics, so we got Inhab Mike and Watch Mike, and I'm in front of a mic, so this is going to be very confusing. Inhab Mike, real estate development has changed markedly since the post-Second World War boom that saw the creation of what we now call the suburbs. Now the pendulum is swung in the opposite direction. People no longer describe the American dream as living in the middle of a sea of houses, dependent entirely on a car to get everywhere from school to shopping mall. Current housing developments that are built from scratch are designed as walkable communities, and they include parks, stores, gyms, and coffee shops. You're developing Patterson Point very close to existing walkable and bikeable attractions like the Mississippi River and Algiers itself. How did you come to find and purchase this block of land? What was it before you started developing it into a neighborhood?
So I came across the land from my bank. Actually presented it to me. It was a property that they had taken back from somebody else, and they presented it to me about 3 years ago. And during that time, land was getting tough to come by on this side of the river, and it was an empty lot, and it had been empty since 1950. And before that, it had been warehouses where they worked on trains.
I've heard you say you don't know how to build a cheap house. So what does that mean in terms of profit margins and what you're doing going forward?
Yeah, we put a lot into our houses because we build old windows, we build all wood doors, we build just kind of the old school way of building that you see in a lot of these old New Orleans homes. And it means a tighter profit margin, but we invest we see the big picture, and it's not just about what we're doing right in front of us, but what is in the long run for everybody, and that's us and people that buy our homes and everything. So it might not be more on every home, but in the long term, everybody's going to benefit more from it.
You talk about big picture. It's a big project. You're going to have eventually 44 homes, right?
Yeah.
That's that model of you're going to build them in the lean years and you're going to build them in the good years.
Yeah.
The other guys are going to build a lot in some years, but they're not going to build any in the others. Quality means you're going to always be building something.
That's exactly right.
Wow,
that's a great model.
Yeah. Quality over quantity always.
Now, Watch Systems, Mike. Watch Systems is the type of company we don't hear all that much about here. Here in New Orleans, the business you're in is known as SaaS, SaaS, which stands for Software as a Service. The SaaS business model is basically the same as we have with apps on our phone that get continually updated, except in the case of SaaS companies, clients and companies are paying for the service rather than getting it for free. On my iPhone, if we take, for example, my Uber app, I understand where Uber gets the info to update it. But in the case of your product, Offender Watch, when you're updating, say, the police department in Boise, Idaho, and they know about a sex offender who has moved to a particular house in a particular neighborhood, but where is that information coming from?
Well, across the country, in all 50 states, sex offenders are required to register once, twice, or maybe even 4 times a year based on the severity of the crime they committed. And most predominant is that they register with the local law enforcement office. So historically, and you got to remember, 20 years ago when we first started Watch Systems, the internet, most sheriffs would say, internet, who even uses email? And now it's prevalent.
So this is back in 99.
99. And so, but back then we had a vision of connecting every local law enforcement together in a network where they are collaborating on a single offender record. You might remember back long ago the Ed Smart story, Elizabeth Smart, the young lady that was abducted. Yep. The father told me one time, he goes, I couldn't believe it. He goes, I would go to the Provo Police Department and say, well, what information do they have in Salt Lake City? And he'd go, well, we don't talk to Salt Lake City.
Whoa.
He goes, the perception is law enforcement collaborates, they cooperate, they work together, and quite honestly, just in this one little world of sex offenders, they don't. But we've created a way to do that. So an example is just in Louisiana, where we started Watch Systems, you're looking at about 4,000 transactions a month of just offender movements and updates just in the state of Louisiana. So imagine if everybody wasn't connected through a common offender record, no one would know anything about any of those movements.
And you've created a map that's continuously updated.
Yes, with the input from the offender by reporting directly to, think of it this way, it's like on Facebook, when you update a photo and your friends are in it, it immediately sends them an alert saying, hey, you've been tagged in a photo. Same thing happens in our environment, and we built that 20 years ago, where if anyone updates information on an offender, everyone is alerted. The state, the FBI, the United States Marshal Service. We've just started getting the U.S. courts, federal probation and parole are huge users, and they're collaborating on a single record. And it's hard to believe that has never existed before. And much like your model, we have a moderate software as a service model, so everybody pays a little bit every year, and any updates that come out for the software, any new enhancements, everybody gets them for free. Of course, it's covered under their annual subscription.
And now, starting, I guess, in 2017, you have I don't know if I call it a new product, but a new angle where you're actually dealing with the parents, not just the law enforcement agents.
We've developed a number of tools. So one of them, I invented the whole concept of getting an email when someone moves within a mile of your home. And the reason is that 20 years ago, I was suspicious that the deputy was actually doing his job. So every time he updated a record, I had it send me an alert. That way I knew he was working. So one day I was like, hey, if I can get an alert whenever there's an update, why not around my house? So we've been doing that for 20 years, but the new thing is going to be the greatest thing ever for public safety or for homeowners, and that is this. If you can get an email when someone moves within a mile of your home, wouldn't you want an email when they're socially interacting with your kid in your own living room?
Yeah.
So if they're on Xbox or PlayStation and they're a registered sex offender and your child is interacting with them, we're going to have the ability to send you an alert saying this person is doing that.
Builder Mike, let me ask you a marketing question. You're building these houses. Are you building them on spec? That's always a scary thing.
Yeah, we're only going to build probably 4 at a time on spec, and then what we'd like to do is get people to come and see the product that we're able to build, and then engage us to build a pre-sold spec for them, so they can still have the flexibility to customize their home and get it exactly what they want, and then buy it from us when we're finished building it.
Now, I read that they kind of start at $300,000 and go up there.
Yeah.
They're not gigantic homes, so who's your target market?
Yeah, so we're trying to really appeal to people that have been priced out of the New Orleans market, people that have, and both with renting and buying a home, and that's a lot of people now that rents have really gone up and home prices have really gone up, and so we're appealing to people that have been priced out, and that would be typically it's young professionals, first-time home buyers, young families. And then we've also had a positive response from empty nesters as well. So it's kind of first or...
Me too,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you're a pretty innovative guy. I saw that, we think of you now as, woodworking and building and such, but where the businesses you go, right after Katrina, you created kind of a home gutting business, right?
Yeah. So that's kind of how I got my start on my own, branching away from my dad and working with him. And I, just saw an opportunity with a lot of the houses that needed to be cleaned out, and started with my family's houses first, and then that just snowballed into doing that for other people, and that was how I got my start.
I know a lot of family business. You seem to like your family.
Yeah.
Yeah. Doesn't always work that way sometimes.
Yeah, I've been working with my dad since I was a kid, and we still work together now. He works in the shop, and I handle the building and the business end of things, and it really lucky to work with my dad every day.
You're listening to Out to Lunch. I'm Peter Ricchiuti. I'm talking with Mike Bertel from the construction and real estate company Inhab, and Mike Cormaci from the sex offender crime watch software company WatchSystems. Now, Mike and Mike, this is the part of the show we call Another Great Idea. Maybe you've got a friend like this, someone who's always got a great idea for you. They tell you about this job you should apply for, or that guy you should have a cup of coffee with, or a great investment opportunity you should jump on. Now, you can take advice like this and it turns out to be a disaster. You can dismiss this advice and miss out on something that might have really turned out great. Or you can take your friend's advice and it turns out to be the best thing that ever happened to you. Do you have an example in your life or career of a friend who had a great idea for you? Did you take their advice and how did it turn out? I'll watch Mike.
Actually, I have a really very good one. So we used to work together, and she had a little small client up in Traverse City, Michigan.
Oh, I know where that is.
And she said, you would be perfect to come work. She left the company we were both working for. She goes, you'd be perfect for that. I said, what is it? And she goes, it's this little insurance company, and they do private insurance on custom cars, boats, planes, that kind of thing. And I said, where exactly is Traverse City, Michigan? It sounds cold. And she goes, shut up, you'll be perfect for it. Well, she just retired as the president and CEO of Haggerty Insurance, the world's largest provider of private car, custom cars, boats, planes. They put on the Haggerty Insurance auto show that you see on TV, She was the third employee. I was going to be number 4. So, but the part that's great about it is the ultimate reason I turned her down is I said, I'd love to do it, but I met this girl and I really kind of like her, and she's here in Cincinnati, and we've been married 24 years, 5 kids. So
net,
if you look at it,
decision.
I made the right decision.
What about you, Mike?
Yeah, that's a good question. And from being a business owner, I've got a lot of advice and from a lot of people. And the one bit of advice that I've got that I've learned to trust and take more than anything is my intuition. And it comes from within, and just always trusting that gut feeling that you have about any advice that you get, and following your intuition and knowing that's the right choice to make. And just being able to filter through a lot of the advice and a lot of the opportunities and things that are presented to you with that intuition has been valuable.
So you do your business pros and cons, but at the end it comes down to what you feel in your gut?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's really, learning to trust that and knowing that intuition is the right choice to make has been valuable.
And your previous work in construction and woodworking and such probably didn't require a lot of marketing, but this new project takes a lot of marketing. How are you going about that? How do you tell people about this development?
Really, we let our homes speak for themselves, and we haven't made a big marketing push because the biggest thing that we can do is just build the homes that we know how to build and let those speak for themselves and let them let people experience that and see that, and the right people will find out about it. And we'll do other events as far as open houses and parties and events and stuff out at the site, but we really just want people to come and see what we're doing.
What a big sign on the ferry.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah.
Always trying to help. I'm one of those people giving you free advice.
Yeah. They're just rattling off the top of your head.
Myself, really. And our other Mike from WatchSystems, how did you get, I understand your first clients were here, how did you get the rest of them around the country? Was it word of mouth, or did you go to to market?
The very first, so this whole thing started at Fuelman. We had a mapping department at Fuelman. Fuelman is a fleet fueling card. You can only use it at certain gas stations. And so we used to have to make site directory guides showing clients where they could get fuel, because not every gas station offered it. And so we had this mapping capability, and my job was to see if we could make it a revenue center. So I looked at the client base, and most of it was law enforcement, because cops have lots of cars and they drive all the time, so they go through a lot of fuel. So I went to the California State Sheriff's Association meeting, and while I was there, I met the president of the National Sheriff's Association. His name was Dan Smith, and he was from Texas. Big old Texas guy, cowboy hat. And I went up to him and I said, how would you recommend, me building this business? And he says, law enforcement is about relationships. So know and get to know as many people as you can, because that's the way you'll grow your business. It's great. And that later, during the week, I had a sheriff come by my booth. And he goes, I use Fuel Man. And I said, well, I'm not selling fuel. I actually have this mapping capability. You think you'd want to see where crime is in your community? He goes, no, not really. He goes, but if you could show me where my sex offenders were, that'd be a great idea. And that's what happened. I came back and wrote a memo. Fuel Man, we had 150 people just at the corporate office in Covington. And so next thing you know, I get called into the principal's office. The president and CEO, he goes, you want to do what? And I told him I'd done some research, and all 50 states had this problem. And we started developing some of the stuff, and all the while I was going out and building these relationships with all of these sheriffs across the country.
Now, you're selling it as it's saving them a lot of money.
The thing is there's two problems with it. One, you really do have a legal problem. If an offender falls non-compliant, if they don't come in when they're supposed to, you need to have a warrant, and you need to go look for them. Well, if you don't know that they're non-compliant, that's a problem. So in our software, we have this little calendar tool that tells you everybody who's supposed to come in the next 7 days. It sounds simple, but normally they don't do that.
Well, it's work. And Mike, I've got a question for you. You've got the Patterson Point. It's going to keep you busy for a while. Do you see other opportunities on the West Bank?
Yeah. I think as the East Bank continues to price people out of it, and I think crime is a major issue on the East Bank, that Algiers Point and parts of the West Bank don't have that crime problem. I think there's a lot of opportunities that will keep coming up in Old Algiers and Algiers Point and along the Mississippi River on the West Bank. I think the next wave will be commercial activity, and there's already been restaurants and cafes popping up in Algiers Point. I think that will continue.
Once you get a coffee shop, you're ready. Right?
Yeah.
So if you're down in the French Market area and you walk up on the levee, would I be looking at up or down?
We're downriver from that.
Downriver.
So if you were at the Crescent Park in the Bywater and you looked across from the Crescent Park, you would be looking directly at Patterson Point.
Okay. So by the Bywater area, up on the levee there by the park, and then you'd look, okay, great, I'm going to go check that out.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes statistics and experience seem to tell us two very different things. Statistically, New Orleans is a crime-ridden city that ought to be the kind of murderous hell that you don't want to work or live in. In reality, it's one of the greatest cities in the country, one of the destinations Americans most want to visit, and one of the best places to start or grow a business. Mike Bertel, you're making the most of the quality of life aspect of the city, rehabbing existing homes and creating a whole new community over there in Algiers. Mike Cormaci, you are exemplifying New Orleans entrepreneurial know-how and creating a nationwide business success. Mike and Mike, congratulations on your many accomplishments to date. We look forward to keeping up with you in the future. Thank you both for taking the time to join me today on Out to Lunch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My guests on Out to Lunch today have been Mike Cormaci, the president and co-founder of WatchSystems, and Mike Bertel, the owner of Inhab. You can find out more about Mike Bertel's buildings and Mike Cormaci's Crime Watch by following the links on our website, itsneworleans.com. The producer of our show is Grant Morris, our technical producer is Eric Merle, and our researcher is Maggie Mendel. You can listen to the show and to past episodes of Out to Lunch wherever you get podcasts and at itsneworleans.com. If you want to know what we look like, you can find photos from this show on itsneworleans.com and the It's New Orleans Facebook page. The photos were taken today by Alison Moon. Out to Lunch is a production of INO Broadcasting for itsneworleans.com and WWNO 89.9 FM. I'm Peter Ricchiuti. Thanks for joining me. I look forward to meeting you again next week around the table here at Commander's Palace for more business, New Orleans style, on Out to Lunch.
Out to Lunch is recorded live over lunch at Commander's Palace in New Orleans. Commander's Palace serves lunch Monday to Friday, jazz brunch on Saturday and Sunday with live music, and dinner 7 nights a week. Mitchell Foreman wrote and performs all the music on Out to Lunch. Mitchell's music is available wherever great jazz is sold or streamed, and at mitchellforeman.com. Major support for Out to Lunch is provided by the law firm of Jones Walker, established in 1937 with over 375 attorneys in offices throughout the U.S., providing a comprehensive range of services to a local, national, and international client base. JonesWalker.com. And by Short & Associates, legal recruiters in Louisiana and Texas, and Orange Theory Fitness.